Welcome to the Life in Michigan podcast. Life in Michigan is more than an online magazine. We share the stories, experiences, and vibrant personalities that make the Great Lakes state truly unique. In this podcast, we bring you inspiring, heartwarming, and sometimes unexpected conversations with people who call Michigan home. From the rugged beauty of the Upper Peninsula to the bustling creativity of Kalamazoo, we'll cover the stories and define what it means to live, work, and play in Michigan. Today on Life in Michigan, we are joined by the road warrior himself, Kevin McKinney, Sales and Distribution Manager for Barrel and Beam. Kevin's got a deep love for Michigan, especially the Upper Peninsula, and he has made it his mission to connect people with great beer, good stories, and the wide open road. From growing up on the east side of the state to discovering the joy of farmhouse ales in Marquette, Kevin shares his journey through Michigan's craft beer scene, plus tales of van life, UP food picks, mountain biking misadventures, and why collaborations are more than just clever can art. So buckle up. This is one part travelogue, part beer nerd dream, and 100% UP love. Hey, so Kevin, how are you? I like the background. Nobody can see it on the podcast, but you've got the Northern Lights up there, way up there in Marquette. So how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of fitting sitting in my living room looking outside. It's obviously during the day, but I'm doing good. Yeah, just ready to hit the road and go back downstate.
Oh, excellent, excellent. We just saw you. You were downstate because we were over at the Winter Beer Fest for the Michigan Brewers Guild at in Grand Rapids. You had a nice full mustache, and now again, people can't see this, but it's gone, and apparently it froze off.
Yeah, it did. It got so cold and windy, it just kind of blew off. It landed on somebody else, and I just left it.
Oh, I can't imagine. That would be like this gigantic caterpillar.
Yeah, it was pretty big. Someone asked me on Friday night when we were out at City Built if I dyed it, and I say no, I did not dye it. So.
Oh man, what the hell?
I know.
I don't know if that's a compliment or like a slight. Like, what do you think I'm old or?
Yeah, I didn't know how to take it, but I said if she looked closely, there's definitely some gray in there.
Crazy. Well, we were thinking we would just start with your backstory. When you were a small child, um, what was it like for little Kevin?
Well, growing up in Mount Clemens, no.
So you were born in Michigan?
I was, yeah. I'm a true East Sider, born and raised in, I say Mount Clemens, but it's Harrison Township, so over on the Lake St. Clair area.
Ah,
Lived there until I was about 16 or 17.
nice,
Then I
nice.
left for the military.
Oh yeah, and then you were stationed up in the UP. Is that correct? Or
I was, yeah. So when you're going through tech school, and I did HVAC, they give you what they call a wish list, and you put your 5 bases anywhere in the world that you want to go, and they'll try to get you there.
uh,
And I put K.I. Sawyer as my number one. They said, "Go ahead, buddy," because nobody has to go there.
yeah, of all the places in the world, you
Yes,
said Sawyer up in the
yeah.
UP.
But there was a reason. We used to, as a child, our family would vacation up here weeks at a time. And I knew I absolutely loved the UP. I'd be, 6.5, 7 hours away from home if I ever wanted to go, but I knew that I was going to have a blast, even not being 21 up here, that I was going to have a blast living up here.
Nice. So where did your family take you when you were
We
young?
did, I mean, you name it, and that's why I loved it up here. Is we hit everything. I mean, we did all the way as far west up into Copper Harbor, obviously, Whitefish Point, the Sioux Locks. I mean, we went everywhere. So I was extremely familiar with the UP before I moved up here in the 90s.
Awesome. So were your parents like, did they just like the UP? Did they have
We
do you have
camped.
family up there?
Oh, we camped. So it wasn't always the UP. I mean, my dad had a big van and pulled this 32-foot trailer. So we'd go down to Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, all over Pennsylvania. So yeah, we hit everything as it was always like a 2.5 week family vacation in the summer.
Oh, wow. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I think
Did
that's
you
where
ever?
also my love of driving came from. I always loved being in the car and seeing different things.
Yeah, that is a nice segue right into our next question. Did you ever read our notes first?
Yeah, right.
So you're on the road a lot. Many
Yeah.
people would find that like hard. So
Oh,
like what is it you love about it?
well, seeing new things. I just love, I got my license the day I turned 16, and I just love being behind the wheel and being able to go anywhere I wanted to, anytime I wanted to. Um, but yeah, I get it all the time. People just, I can't believe you do that. I couldn't go that long. These are people that maybe drive 13 miles to work for the day and drive home and they never leave. I love seeing new things. But in the industry, I love meeting new people and going to different places. So that was a big thing is, and I lived in California after the base closed up here in 95. I lived in California. And when I came home, I never flew. So it was always driving back and forth.
Oh,
So seeing different
really?
parts of the country, yeah, I just would love, and I would take a different route each time and just kind of explore.
Oh man, you would love our buddy Steve Weisork. He loves to do that as well. Like every time we meet up with him for something, he'll say, "Oh yeah, I took the back roads here, or I took this different road here," and he'll know like. You'll be talking about some area, and he goes, "Oh yeah, were you on this such road?" I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
How do you know all this?" So you
Yeah,
sound
I
like
mean,
it sounds like the
from the
same thing with you.
Yeah, I love it. It's a way to see different things. And even though I didn't drive, I did take a train out to Vegas one time, which was absolutely amazing because it allowed me to see a different part of the country I never saw before by train car. But yeah, I just think it's longer for sure than flying, but you get to see things from ground level than flying over it. So I've absolutely loved it, and now it's part of my career working
Yeah.
for the brewery. And yeah, it's mostly now obviously Michigan and Wisconsin and sometimes Minnesota, but I just say I travel the upper Midwest.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Travel the upper Midwest. Yeah. So what is it you do? I know what you do, but our listeners might not know what you do.
I pedal beer for my favorite brewery. So yeah, I work for Barrel and Beam as their sales and distribution manager for about, well, I've been with the brewery for almost 3 years, but moved up here 2 years ago to do that. I was just doing it part-time downstate. But yeah, so I fill up a big white van and I drive around. And usually the sales are made before I go, but when I'm on the road, I'm also stopping at different places and new places and trying to make sales. So yeah, I travel once a month throughout all of Wisconsin, which will be next week, and
Wow.
twice a month I do a loop throughout the Lower Peninsula, and then that off week is usually spent up here traveling around the UP. So
Wow.
I'm
So you
usually
really
I'm usually in my bed about maybe 7 or 8 nights a month.
That is
so do you ever
wild.
sleep in your van? I mean, like, do
Oh
you
yeah, many, many times. More so in the summer, but like I drove home after the beer fest on Saturday. Um, and I was gonna try to make it, but I hit the bridge and was a little bit tired. So I just slept in my van I took a quick hour and a half cat nap and then drove the rest of the way home.
That is wild.
so have you ever had like the police officer knocking on your window, like, "Hey, sir, what are you doing?"
So yeah, I'll try to make this story as short as possible. And I don't know if I ever told you that, but I was up in the Thumb and I got there too late to deliver to a brew pub, and they were closed. And I just hate the idea of staying in a bed, a hotel or motel for a few hours and waking up next morning and just so I'm like, oh, I'll crash my van. It was summertime. Well, I was wrestling around in there, and someone heard this ruckus, and obviously there's no windows in my van, so someone banged on the outside, and I just kind of sat there, and they banged again. So, and someone says, "Are everything okay in there?" So, long story short, this husband and wife were walking by, and they didn't know what was going on in this creepy white van. So they asked me to come out and then open the back door. They thought I was in there with somebody, and he said he was apologetic. He goes, "Oh, you'd have to forgive me. I've got two daughters at home." So, not so much police, but strangers look at me pretty funny when I'm sleeping in my van.
Oh, are you thinking of Silence of the Lambs when he has the woman like help him carry a couch in and then throws her in the
I,
pit?
yeah, I do like lotion, but not that much.
Oh man. So Kevin, when you're like, do you are you listening to things when you're in the car or in the
Yeah.
van driving, or
Um,
how do you entertain yourself? I mean, I know it's visually stimulating to see different parts of the country, but what do you do in
Yeah,
between A and
so
B?
I mean, I was on the podcast train many, many years ago. I would say about 12 to 15 years ago, I started listening to podcasts when I was just driving around on my own, doing the whole brewery thing that I used to do. But yeah, so lots of podcasts, audiobooks. I have about 2,300 songs downloaded onto my phone that I can, if I get sick of hearing someone talk, I can just jam to my music or put it on shuffle and just go. And then, like you said, a lot of times I'll just put it on mute and just kind of try to soak whatever is around me. I try to soak it in. But no, podcasts for sure, and get me through a lot of the driving.
Yeah.
There's so many. So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. The
Oh
other day
man.
was great. I was downstate when the first one popped up, and I pushed play as soon as I could on that one. But I don't know if you ever heard of The Ringer. It's a podcast network that has probably about 35 to 40 different pods from sports, which is usually my favorite, but they have pop culture, political pods. But yeah, I don't know if you follow or watch the show Severance that's on Apple Plus, if you're familiar with that at all.
People keep talking about it, but we have yet to watch it.
It is so good. It's only in season two, but then they just released a pod for every episode, like a lot of the shows are doing now. So
Yeah.
for the past few weeks, I've been burning through those. Uh,
Nice.
but yeah, it's just a big mix. My favorite comedian, David Cross, has a new pod that pops up every week, so I'll listen to that.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of just and when Nick and I are on the road, because he does travel with me at times, he's a big murder mystery Dateline guy. So we'll listen to a ton of those. And we usually within the first 2 minutes try to guess who did it. And then we'll see if it's right at the end of the podcast. It's usually the husband, right?
Yeah,
Most
yeah. Yeah.
yes.
Oh man. Oh,
Yeah, we listen to Dateline. There's one called The Park, which is really cool. It's this girl. These are really short. The Park, Datelines come sometimes are an hour to an hour and a half.
mm,
The Park is one that I listen to. It's usually about 30 to 35 minutes, and it tells a story of someone that is either went missing or ended up getting killed in a park somewhere across the United States. Uh, yeah, and there is
wow.
one that actually I someone was killed, I think, in the late 80s here in Marquette at Presque Isle.
Oh,
And
really?
that episode is on that show also.
Wow. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah,
It
I
is.
know. That's such a beautiful area.
I
Crazy.
know. Yeah, I don't yeah, it was kind of like I don't know what happened. I mean, I definitely listened to it, but yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's familiar locally with that story.
Yeah. Wow. That's troubling.
Mhm.
So, so Kevin, you are probably doing well. I know it's work, but it also seems a bit of a dream job to be able to work with Barrel and Beam and be involved in the beer industry. Uh, I know that before you did that, you were traveling around like you like to do, and you were also writing about beer and experiencing breweries. Um, like you definitely have this passion for beer. What was it? Do you think that um, your work and traveling around to different breweries and tasting out different beer styles was a leg up for you in landing that job with Barrel and Beam?
Well, you would think that. Eventually it was for sure. But before I landed with Nick and Marina and Joe and the gang at Barrel and Beam, I had applied probably about 30 different times to different breweries for this position.
Wow.
And that just turned, I never even actually had an interview. I didn't have well, I had sales experience, but not in the industry. Um, but no, it was something that I thought would like, oh, pun intended, I know the state like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Um, I still give directions by breweries. I think I'm pretty well versed in the beer scene in Michigan and now slowly becoming in Wisconsin. But yeah, it helped out eventually. And I talked to Nick probably about 3 years before he hired me, and I was like, oh, if you ever need a salesperson, every time I talk to him, I'm like, hey, just plant that seed. And then
Yeah.
finally, yeah, in what was that, 2022, he offered me the position, like I said, starting part-time downstate, but eventually it started going so well, he asked me to do it full-time up here. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, so I was paying for it, and I have all my video, a lot of my videos, or most of my videos are on my Instagram page, but the Michigan Brewery Review page, I think, has just gone dark now because I stopped paying for it. Yeah. Don't watch any of that. Oh my God, I think my worst video, I didn't know anything about editing, and I still don't, but like the video I did with Nick and Joe on there, I just like, oh, someone would have to pay me to watch my own video. No, you can. People can go there because there's other information about different breweries and the fun I had. But yeah, I didn't know anything about anything. I was just starting my camera and pressing play and never editing anything. So it was pretty
Excellent.
bad. Oh, I don't. Yeah, I guess. I mean, just it's like they said, repetition, and now I think the phones and the even like so my I actually use my drone editing tool that came with my drone that's on my phone for editing and chopping stuff up and be able to move clips certain places. But it just came with time, like I said, and I still again I still don't think I'm good at it when I do a video. But it became easier just by doing it more and more. But yeah, there's different. I'm not a techie at all, but there's definitely different apps and programs out there for lighting and chopping stuff up. But I'm the wrong person to ask about that.
uh, so, back to the beer and Barrel and Beam in particular. So, Barrel and Beam is a very special brewery in that they're not your typical brewery that's going to be, throwing a bunch of West Coast IPAs out there. It's more, I know sometimes people use the term sour, but I don't like that term necessarily because I think it connotates a certain tartness. I think of Barrel and Beam as more like traditional farmhouse ales, just really great beers that are made in a traditional way with ingredients. So, that said, sometimes that can be a push for people that don't know about Barrel and Beam and the specialness of that beer. How do you how do you meet that challenge when you come in someplace and they're like, well, what is this? How do you get them into Barrel and Beam beer?
Well, there are pluses to it. There are definitely negatives because a lot of people aren't familiar with farmhouse or have certain connotations of what a farmhouse is going to be. And like you said, yeah, just like Saturday, most people come up and like, oh, all you guys do are sours. And it's really not true. I would say 10% of our beers that we make are sour.
Yeah.
Now we do make a lot of funky beers, but it's the plus going to do sales is that we definitely fit a niche that other breweries aren't making. Now there are a ton of great saisons and sours out there,
Hmm.
but our whole catalog, I always go in, you're not going to find an IPA or a standard porter or stout on ours. And, a lot of whether it's a tap room or a bottle shop are kind of happy about that because the market is flooded with a lot of different style IPAs from hazy to West Coast, which I love drinking, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a certain, I think people have a certain idea about us, but we have beers, for a while. It was our Blanc de Nord, which is just an easy drinking Belgian wit, which was our gateway beer. When people would come in, Hillary or Aiden, whoever was bartending, would say, "We'll start with this if you're not familiar," and then we if they like the Belgian wit, then we'd graduate them to something maybe with a little bit more funk to it.
Uh,
Now, Nick, we have a obviously you're familiar with Monarch, our lager there, which is so approachable and easy drinking, and
yeah, that's
we have
wonderful.
yeah we have Noble Pilsner and our Dauphin, which is an amber beer to guard. So we do have, Nick has branched out from just all those are considered farmhouse ales, just not the, Saison yeast or Belgian yeast that he uses a lot in most of his beers.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
Yeah, sure. Well, just it's the relationship that you form, and figuring out different beers that you might not normally make, or you make very similar beers like we did with Archival. We both made Satis, and so when we went down there the day that you were both there, they made their version of a Sati, which is a similar style beer, or it's the same style beer we make, but they made theirs different. So it was kind of like that went off from that, and then they came up and we made a Goes that's still in the barrels, that we haven't, our Nick had never brewed one before, so it gave him an opportunity to make a brand new beer that fit the profile of Barrel and Beam and what we normally do. But yeah, I think it's just about making relationships. I'm excited to sell it because I'm able to put our name and Archival's name on that beer, and I just think people will be very excited about that. Two really well-known breweries in the state that both make amazing beers, and then it's the idea of having that for the very first time, and I won't say the only time, but it's not going to happen often with them. So it's a great, for me as a salesperson, a great selling point. But I think collaborations in general are just a way to two brewers or breweries to get together and just do something different that they normally wouldn't do.
And have you guys done? Oh, go ahead, babe.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that came up because obviously we love you guys and we love your story. And I absolutely, from what I did in the past and do now, I love what you do. So I just thought, it would be a great idea to make that beer, Life in Michigan, and then be able to put your story on the can and, out in the market. And it did amazing, way better than we ever could have hoped that it would do. So that was, yeah, we know we loved it. It's coming out again earlier this year. We're making two batches of it again. So that'll be out. We'll flood the market with that again in a few months, because it did so well and people loved it. But no, that was an idea of us not only being able to get our name out there with a brand new beer that we never did before, but also share a story that we absolutely love. So it just kind of went hand in hand. And we did a collaboration for our fest beer with Smokehouse down in Elmont, and that was kind of the same thing. That we made them. They were doing a Oktoberfest, and they were looking for a fest beer, so we kind of collaborated. And Nick had obviously brewed a fest beer before, but not at Barrel and Beam, so that gave us the opportunity again to make a brand new beer and get the story of the smokehouse out there also. So that not only was down in Elmont and across Michigan, but just like your beer, it was spread all across Wisconsin. So whoever picks up Life in Michigan will be able to read the story of Life in Michigan on the can.
That's awesome.
Yes, yes, 100%. Yeah, Wisconsin, they love their beer over there. So yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's something new. Everyone loves, before I got in the industry and I was, doing all the check-ins and going out and getting new beers. That's what it is getting your hand on something that's brand new that you we may have had that style before, obviously, because
Hmm.
but you've obviously never had that beer. So the benefit for us is getting our beer into people's, brand new beer into people's hands, something that has never been made before. Again, the ideas and particular styles of beer have been made, but not that particular one.
Is there any type of collaborations that you're looking forward to in the future that you got in queue?
I don't think we have one lined up. We just, we're still that one with Archival. We brewed. They stayed 2 days after the Fall Beer Fest in September.
Okay,
And so that's still in the barrel. So that's going to be a spring release for us. So the release of that beer is what we're really looking forward to. We
nice.
don't have an actual new brew lined up yet, but that doesn't mean that, within the next month. And that's, I like to go out and I approach people, but now, and it's a good thing, Nick being so busy, his brew schedule is really built out for all of 2025. So anything new, yeah. So anything new, he's figuring out, where in that schedule to be able to fit a collaboration in.
Yeah, yeah, because you guys have a different schedule than most breweries because of the way the types of beer that you brew. It's a much longer duration.
For many of them, like yours, for Life in Michigan, let sit in barrels for X amount of time. Some beers longer than others, but Nick, it's not exact numbers, but he'll always say that well, just most breweries, the way they make their beer from start to finish usually is 3 to 4 weeks before it's canned and ready to go out. On average, across our whole catalog, ours is about 110 days. Now we have some that we don't set into or put into barrels like the Monarch or the Noble that I was talking about.
Yeah,
But the way we condition our beers, naturally condition our beers, definitely add another 3 to 4 weeks to the process before we can, put that beer that we make out into the market or in the tap room.
nice, nice. And I,
Oh yeah, I think there's always, I mean, a big one. I see Ed from City Built. I follow his Instagram page, and I think he just did one last week, and I forgot exactly who it was with, but yeah, I think there's more and more, especially in cities like that, Grand Rapids, where or Detroit, where breweries are a little bit more centralized and can get, we're 6 hours away from most
right.
breweries, in the Grand Rapids Detroit area. So either going down there or coming up here, it's a little bit more of a, time constraint and figuring it out. But we did went for our fifth anniversary 2 years ago because of Nick's ties working for Ordoc. We did a collaboration with them in town, which was amazing. That again 2 years ago, but so we have done collaborations here in town, but yeah, I think there's going to be more and more, but it's just going to be breweries that are a little bit closer to one another.
Nice. So, way back in 2019, which is actually like 6 years ago, uh, there, yeah, yeah, there is a line. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like AD and BC.
yeah, exactly. So, Kevin, you had a quote that said, "My idea is my ideal goal is to end up somehow with a camera and someone paying me to go and travel Michigan, like the show Under the Radar, Michigan and Pipe Dream. I know, but I hope it happens one day." So, do you feel like you've reached your dream job with Barrel and Beam?
Yes, I mean in the industry, for sure. I couldn't, before, and if people research, I'm not just saying this, but I had two favorite breweries in the state, and I'm working for one of them. First time I met, first time I was in, I actually met Alex, who was the front of the house manager and now our chef of Northwood's Test Kitchen. But second time I went in is where you'll see that awful video of me talking to Nick and Joe at the bar. And right away, not only the two of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, but I was just blown away because although I drink beer, I didn't have, and I still don't think I have a ton of beer knowledge, but I didn't know what I was drinking. I was just like, what is this stuff? And I did like sours, and there were sours on tap, but I wasn't familiar with like a true traditional farmhouse ale. So I knew, every time I came up to Marquette or when they started distributing downstate, I was just grabbing as much barrel and beam as possible or going there as many times as I could. So yes, I think I am definitely living and not only working for my favorite brewery, but definitely doing what I've always wanted to do. Again, I was stuck in a doctor's office for 25 years, and that's another thing too. Is everyone's like, "Oh, I can't believe what you do," and I was like, "Well, if you did what I did for 25 years, you would love doing this because it's so different." But no, I mean, when I started my page, my brewery review page, um, I did. I mean, I loved Under the Radar. I met Tom a couple times, and I just loved his show. And it was just something like, oh my God, Michigan has always been my favorite state, no matter where I travel. Michigan was not only home, but there was so many things to do here. And then, we've got. I think we're at either always the fourth or fifth or sixth amount of breweries in the United States. So it just was great. I could go mountain bike or kayak and end up at two or three different breweries no matter where I was at in the state. And I just absolutely love the idea of telling people about not only my travels but mostly about the beers and breweries out there. And I still get to. That was one of my questions when Nick hired me. I said, do I have to stop going to different breweries? He's like, no, go ahead. You go drink as much as you want.
That's awesome. Yeah, you gotta. Well, it's market research, right? You get to
Yes,
figure out like
exactly.
what are other people doing? What are the
Right.
winning strategies? I think
No,
that's
it's
a really cool thing about Michigan breweries. They seem very, and we've talked about this before, collaborative. They're um, not just brewing beers together, but also being able to share information and be just collegial with each other.
and so many breweries are supportive of other breweries. Like when people come into us and they're new to Marquette, and like other breweries here, because I'll hear it, you have to go here, you have to go here. So we're not trying to keep everyone here. We want everyone to experience everything in Marquette with with as many breweries as we have now. People are sending, or breweries are sending people to us, and we're doing the same thing. You got to go to all these different breweries, and I think that's statewide that happens.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you guys are in a great spot because you do have a preponderance of awesome beer. You got you guys, you got Ordok, you got Driffa, you got uh, our friends at Cognition,
Black
um,
Rocks,
Black Rocks, yeah, who are just like, yeah,
yeah,
fantastic.
the Beerling,
Yeah, the Beerling, one of the originals.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's because of the food. But yeah, I find myself at the Beerling quite often because
yeah,
there's just such good clean beers and pretty. You know what to expect every time you go in there.
yeah. And I also like you guys are on the Iron Ore Trail, right?
We are, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So you can actually like just ride your bike because you're like what, like 3 miles out of downtown, maybe four.
yeah. On a bike, it's uphill, and that's the advantage. You get your workout on the way there, and when people leave, we tell them to grab a can of beer because when you go back to town, you never have to touch your pedals at all. Ever.
Oh, we got to try that sometime.
Yeah.
Do that ride.
That was one of my favorite things when I had my page is I'd call it biking for beers, and I would make videos, and I would just do brew tours on my bike. I'd go to different places, whether it was where I was living at the time in Oakland County or up in Traverse or Grand Rapids or Marquette. I would just go to as many breweries as possible in a day on my bike.
Nice.
Those are fun. But the most fun I ever had was, and I will still say to today, although Grand Rapids is beer city, my favorite brewery town in Michigan is Traverse City because it's not as big. There's 14 to 15 breweries there now. You can reach most of them by bike, and one day I did. I did 15 breweries by bike in a day. Yeah.
Wow.
So when you start that, well, I don't know.
Might have to walk the bike the last.
But yeah, it's funny because I think my first beer was at 10 o'clock at North Peak, and my last one was at about 9:30 at night. And you can definitely see a difference in the videos from start to finish.
Oh,
Yeah. No, I think, or the 51st state, whatever you want to call it, we're
that's right.
different. But I learned this, you know,
Yeah.
uh, when, I didn't obviously remember so much as, talking to people because I was mostly with my family when we vacation up here in the 80s. But when I moved up here in the 90s, you could just tell because I was on a Air Force base working with the military, but there were also civil servants working with us, what we would call Upers that had been, living here their whole life, and they were just different. They were just so friendly, and that's what you run into town or around town or throughout the UP. This and I this was the first time I heard this, and I've used it, and I'll have to give her credit, but in your last episode, your first episode, more trees and less assholes. I mean, that just is so fitting. Uh, Everybody up here is so nice. Like, you just don't run into bad moods a lot. People, are happy. There's not as much traffic. There's no when you go to Meyer or wherever you're shopping at, there's not these big long lines. It's just, I don't know, there's less stress on people, I feel, when you're up here. And that's what people can expect, not only seeing beautiful scenery and drinking amazing beer, but just like being around a ton of very nice and welcoming people, whether you're from the UP or out of state or if you're a troll.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think that's still me. I live under from the majority of my life, I lived under the bridge. So I would still call my troll now, even though I'm living, or still call myself a troll now. And then although I had 3 years under my belt in the 90s, I'm still a troll. I think, I don't know. I think a decade straight up here, you before you can call yourself a Youper. Yeah, for sure. I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think Robin had mentioned in the first episode that those folks, which you probably fit into now, is a trooper, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So trolls that are
Yeah, that the assholes and the trooper are the or less assholes are the two terms I picked up, and I was like, oh, I'm going to use that all the time now.
we
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yep,
Below the bridge in the lower peninsula of Michigan, since we
correct.
are
Yes.
a bi-peninsula state. So
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, when you were talking about how folks are welcoming and stress-free and pretty relaxed up there, and then I was thinking, Christ, it's like, 10 months of winter, and like darkness, like how do people deal with that? But then I was also thinking of like when they do like those surveys of, the happiest people on earth, they tend to be those like Scandinavians, which there's a lot of Scandinavian heritage up there, Finns and that did all the iron ore and copper mining.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large contingent of those folks that live, and Italians, and basically a lot of immigrants that moved up there. But they came from those areas that were super happy. And just, I don't know, I know you're not going to have like a knowledge. Yes, Chuck, that's why. But I'm just thinking like maybe that is part of that is that Scandinavian heritage, the sisu, the Finnish.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to live up here though, it's, I got it the other day. I can't believe you live up there. There's 10 months or, it's not quite that bad. You know, there's definitely a lot of winter or cooler months. But yeah, you just have to find stuff to do, stuff that makes you happy, whether it's playing outside or sitting in your sauna, or having a campfire every night or something. You have to find a hobby to be able to be happy up here. I think you can sit in your house and watch TV, but there's so many other things to do outside. Along with the great beers, like I mentioned before, and
Yeah,
amazing food options up here. So,
yeah.
yeah. Well, like your friends in Grand Marais, when they drive to Munising, everything from there would be an hour away. So that's one option. But you could live, outside of Negaunee or Ishpeming or Marquette and be 15 to 20 minutes away from a store or a restaurant or something like that. But I wish, and I don't have it yet, but my dream is to have a small piece of land somewhere, and have a little tiny home on it and maybe a little pond. But yeah, something that makes you happy. You could live downtown Marquette, and that's another option, be walkable to everything. So, whether it's a restaurant or a store or close to a gas station, what have you. But yeah, it just there's different options. It depends if you want to have that solitude and not really have a neighbor, or if you want to have a lawn that you can cut every day and wave to your neighbors as they drive by and watch the kids go to school and what have you. So I guess it would depend on what you were looking for. If you're, I like I do like both ideas. I was living, downtown before I moved up here on a busy road and the white noise every night, the ambulance in the distance or, cars going by. But I do love the silence of just being out in the middle of nowhere also.
Nice, nice.
Um, Big adjustment. Yes, there really wasn't because I was so familiar. I'd spend I would take 6 or 7 trips a year when I was living downstate. So I kind of knew what to expect. There wasn't going to be that big of adjustment. Like when Nick offered me the position, he said on the phone, well, it's contingent on you moving up to Marquette, and on the phone I was like, oh no, twist my arm, like, oh, I got to Marquette. I was excited. I was doing backflip. I think I text probably, if you go back to that date, probably 20 people got a text and said, I'm moving. Bye. Like, yeah, I'm in a couple weeks. Ran into my boss's office, who I absolutely love, and I'm like, I'm gotta give my 2 weeks. I'm moving to Marquette. So for me, there wasn't that much of adjustment because I just was so familiar with not only Marquette, but the UP in general. And I knew what I was getting into, whether it was the snow and the cold or the driving. And um, yeah, I was looking forward to it for sure. I always knew I wanted to move north, and I did try Traverse City for a year or close to a year in 2016, and it just didn't work out for different reasons. But it was either going to be Traverse City or the Marquette area that I was going to end up in. So,
Yeah,
yeah, this I think this is going to be home for me now.
nice. I do love, yeah.
Yeah, anytime. Come on up.
I was gonna say I do love Traverse City, but I just always feel like it's such a bottleneck sometimes to get into town
Yes.
versus Marquette. I know it, you know, you still have what is it, 41, 40, what is
Yeah,
the thing?
41. You can take
28.
28.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It just feels like the traffic's not quite as crazy, even though there are, you know, they're both sizable towns. You know, they're not Detroit
Mhm.
big, but they're pretty good, you know, or metropolitan areas, I guess, is you could
Yeah,
say.
I mean, and it depends on the time of year in Traverse City. I'm going this weekend for another beer fest, and it will be easy to get around. But if you're there around Cherry Fest, you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But that is the advantage of also doing what I do is that I'm in and out. I can go home. I'll be in Detroit tomorrow, and I get that city feeling. I love Detroit. I've always been a big proponent of Detroit, and just have loved it, loved it, loved it. And I'll always go back, and I get to see my family and friends. But in 4 days, 5 days, I'll be back home in Marquette. So I get
Yeah.
I'm in and out. I get to, I don't spend much time there, but I do get the feel of everything across the state.
Now, have you had any like super crazy bridge crossing since you're around the state so much? The bridge can have some scary times. Have you
Back in
had
the
any of those?
90s, I thought I was going to get in trouble, but they closed it because of falling ice. And there weren't cell phones back then. And you're AWOL if you're not back at work when you were supposed to be back at work. And I couldn't cross the bridge. So I was on a phone telling my boss, I was like, hey, like I want to be there, but I just can't cross. So the option was, depending on how long it was going to be closed, is drive back down and go around Chicago and back up. But
Oh
he
man.
yeah, so that was the craziest I had. Since I've been here, last year there was really high winds, and it wasn't closed, but this big wind sail that I drive around gets pushed around a lot. So I actually sat there for about 8 hours and waited till the winds died down before I crossed. I didn't think I probably wouldn't get blown over, but it was like, and I don't mind driving across that. I don't get white knuckled or anything, but it was really breezy. So I just don't tell me that. Wow. Yeah. No, I did not hear about that. But the bridge is my one of the few bucket lists in Michigan bucket lists I have, as I would love to be able to go to the top of one of the towers.
Yeah.
I know they do. I think it's a little lottery system. I think they may allow a dozen people up every year or something like that. But that's on my bucket list to be one of those people that get to go up.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'd love to do that just to see what that is like. I mean,
Yeah.
for the very first time last year, we did the bridge walk, which was really cool, and you don't realize how much that bridge moves. When you get
No.
out, it wasn't super windy, which was great, but there was just enough, movement that when you took a step, your foot would be slightly askew. And I actually started to get a little like seasick.
I
Like
remember that. Yeah. I
I'm
remember
like,
that.
what in the hell's going on? I had to get off the damn thing because I'm like, all right, this is not working.
I experienced that in the Arch down in St. Louis. I don't know if you've been up, but you take the little
Uh,
cart to the top, and there's windows up there, and you're looking at a car, and all of a sudden it disappears. And about 15 minutes later, or 15 seconds later, it reappears again. And so I think it sways 6 feet in both directions while you're up there.
oh man.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Yeah, and I do. I was just saying, I do know people, my aunt and uncle will never visit me because my uncle will not drive across the bridge.
Oh,
Without going to Chicago, they're never going to visit me. He just
oh
won't drive
man.
across. Yeah.
Oh, that's too
It is
bad.
Sorry, I cut you off. Well, yes. So the Veerling for whitefish for sure. So there's one, if you cross the bridge and hit two, I kind of discovered this. I've drove by it so many times in my life and I finally stopped. But it's, I don't know if you're familiar or people are familiar with where the Cut River is.
Hmm.
But right past that, there's the Cut River Inn. And to me, it's the best pasty in the UP. Uh,
Oh,
I think so.
we're
Oh,
gonna have to try this.
Gene K's in town here closed about a year and a half or close to maybe even 2 years ago, and that was probably the best pasty that you could eat there or take. But and you can buy at the Cut River Inn, you can buy frozen ones to go, but it's like this old school diner. You just sit there at the bar. It comes out with a little side of coleslaw, and I'm a gravy guy, so I always get gravy on it and not ketchup. But
Nice.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I'm not going to take a side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just comes with like the most amazing gravy on top of it. But yeah, highly recommend Cut River. Um, and then obviously there's some surprisingly for the UP, there's some great pizza spots. Everyone knows if you live around here, if you're from the area, out in Ishpeming, there's Congress, and then in Negaunee, there's Tino's, and it's always the big argument, which is better because they're both very similar, really thin, well-made pizzas. I love both. I'm not going to pick a side on that one.
Oh yeah.
That's the only place to sit for me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mhm. Yes. Yeah, no, I love Congress. I was there just a couple weeks ago. I was in Ishpeming spending some time, and I did get a whole pizza there. Um, and then in town, I think if you've never had Vango's Pizza here right on Third Street, they're I think the best in Marquette for sure. And again, everyone has their opinion. That's my opinion.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I always everyone even when I got in the beer industry or my little blog that I had, I would never called myself a beer snob because when I'd go to my dad's house, he'd give me a Bud Light and I would drink it. So I'm not a beer snob, but I am definitely a pizza snob for sure. Pizza and coffee. Yeah, I'm a pizza and coffee snob.
Yeah, Vango's. We have hit that a couple times after the UP Beer Fest.
Yes.
Yeah.
They I had them I just had a party up here for my 50th and I had them cater pizzas and their wing. Their wings are phenomenal.
Oh,
Phenomenal. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, everyone loved it. Everyone loved it. Sure. Okay. Sure. Oh, man. Um, so many people come to the UP. Well, I'll say a lot of people don't come to the UP. There's so many times that, oh, I've never been to the UP. I've lived in Michigan my whole life. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Uh, and then so many people come up and they'll hit, and both of these are amazing, to Quamanon or Pictured Rocks, and they'll get all the way to Munising, and then they turn around and go home. But to me, I don't think I know, but to me, whether it's Marquette, but anything west, I think getting out to the Porcupines up in the Keweenaw. So a perfect day for me would be driving out and hiking Porcupine Mountains. Funny that Michigan calls them mountains, but we still do. Um, but I think the best adventure I've ever had in Michigan, this was on my bucket list and I was happy to cross it off, but I carried my paddleboard down from the overlook at Lake of the Clouds onto Lake of the Clouds and I paddled it.
Oh wow.
For 4 hours, I was out there by myself. I saw people looking at me, probably going, "What is that guy doing down there? And how did he get down there?" But it was a blast. It was actually a 4th of July, calming, serene, whatever word you want to use. I was just blown away. And I didn't bring enough beers. That's why the only reason I left the lake is I ran out of all the beers I brought with me. But either that or driving up to Copper Harbor. I love biking, obviously, and biking the trails around Copper Harbor. That's amazing also. The ultimate beer, I'll keep it. I'm gonna either bring a Monarch or a Terra Terra, both obviously barrel and beam beers. But yeah, a 4-pack of either one of those or a nice mixed 4-pack, that would be a great day for me for sure. But yeah, I would just there's so many things, go west, young man, in the UP, that keep going and like just figure out what there is to do out there.
Yeah.
There's yeah, a lot of play. I love, again, Pictured Rocks and Quamana are both amazing, but there's a lot more to see out there.
Yeah, for sure. I think it intimidates some folks because if you, because I've done this, if you go all the way to Copper Harbor, which is at the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula, and then drive back to Ann Arbor, that is 13 hours.
Oh yeah, I do not doubt that at all.
Yeah. And you could get to Mississippi, in that time.
Oh,
But
for sure.
which I don't think, yeah, I don't think people realize how big the state can be. But when you were talking about mountain biking in the Keweenaw, I was curious. I've always heard that is like super tough and technical. Is it?
It can be if you're going to be crazy like that. I'm 50 plus now and I'm very fragile, so there are tra there are trails that you're kind of like just like kind of flowy down the hill type trails. I'm not the type of guy that's going to go off like a drop or
Yeah.
anything crazy like that. That's when I'll walk my bike. After 15 beers, I won't walk my bike, but on those trails, I'll kind of go around all those things. But no, there are plenty of, I mean, my favorite one, yeah, it's escaping me now, but you get on it at the top of Brockway Mountain, and you can just, I think it's 2.5 miles long, and it's just kind of really flowy, a lot of switchbacks, no crazy stuff at all. A little, rocky and bumpy,
Yeah.
but no, super easy. Yeah, for sure.
See,
And then
that's
there's great spots where like you can pull off and they have picnic tables and you just have this amazing overlook of Lake Superior on these trails.
oh man. See, that's been my fear because I got into mountain biking and then, rode out in the Waterloo Recreation Area, so the
Mhm.
Potawatomi Trail,
Oh,
which
that's an kick.
can be kind of technical, but not super crazy.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that stuff in, I don't know, probably almost 10 years. Just because I'm like, old and fragile. I'm like, I can't do this crazy stuff where they're
No.
leaping off these things and everything. And I always thought that the UP trails, like in Marquette and over in Keweenaw, were super technical. But it sounds like there's options
Well,
for folks.
Marquette too. So there's, I live where I'm looking at right now. I live right on the South Trails, which are fun, but they're much more because they're a lot more downhill. I love biking to the North Trails. It's a little bit more expansive, and you can kind of just go. And there are again some technical trails. It's just kind of figuring out. They have them marked really well what kind of trail you're going on. But yeah, you could probably go for 10 miles out on the North Trails and just never hit anything that's really hard besides tree roots.
Awesome. And you've raced the Nagani to Marquette
I
race.
did
Have you done that?
what is it called? The Ord Ore to Shore, yeah. I did the soft tail, the 28-mile version, not the 48-mile version. Yeah, a couple buddies and I did it a few years ago, and I would do it again. I will say the worst part about working for a brewery is drinking too much beer and not being as in good a shape as you were 2 years ago.
Oh, the tragedies.
Oh, yeah, probably. But yeah, it's very convenient to grab a beer. I always wait. I'll say this at the brewery. I don't drink a beer at the brewery until I see Joe crack his first one, and then I know it's time to drink a beer.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, anything else you wanted to add before we
No,
wrap
I
up?
just want to thank both of you. Obviously, we've become friends over the year, and I love what both of you do, and traveling around the state and highlighting whether it's a brewery or a parade or a festival. To me, it's that you have my dream job for sure.
Uh, yeah, it's called retirement.
Yes.
Every day is Saturday. Kevin, thank you so much for being on Life in Michigan.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to catch every episode of Life in Michigan. Help us spread the word by rating the show, sharing it with your friends, your neighbors, your family, your mail carrier. Share it with everybody, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay connected by following us on our website and social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, take care and have a fantabulous day in Michigan.